Hello and welcome to Waymark Classroom. My name is Mrs. Geetle and today we'll be teaching you about checks. If you would like the notes, you're welcome to click on the link in the description bar. However, if you have your workbook or your ebook, you can now turn with me to page 61. Now I know what you're saying is, but why should we learn about checks? I've never seen a check. My parents don't even use checks. And nobody accepts checks. Well, the reason why we have to use checks or why we have to learn about checks in accounting is that checks are still legal tender in South Africa, as many countries around the world. From the 1st of May this year, 2020, the maximum value of checks that can be written out is for 50,000 Rand. And this being that they found that most checks that are written out are only 10% are to the value of 50,000 or more, and also that checks that are valued more than 50,000 are the ones that were more prone to fraud. So what I've done is I've actually got an example of a checkbook here. It's one of my old company checkbooks, and you can see that it's made out of paper. This is a double checkbook, so we've got one at the top, one at the bottom, and then when you turn over, you've got another two, and so on. You can see that it's a book there. Now, a check is made up of a counterfoil, a check counterfoil, as well as the actual check. The check is what is torn out and issued to your supplier. All right, here you will see that this check was, the account was held at Standard Bank. This is the account number over here. The company's name over here and CC registration, and this is where the owner would sign. You will see a bank, the branch, Benoni branch, and over here you'll see the branch code. All right, there you'd write the date that the check has been issued, pay, the person you were paying, and the amount in expanded notation, and then in rands and cents. And you'll note that on your check counterfoil, you'll have place for the date as well, and the amount that was written, that the check was for. And here's lines for more information regarding the transaction. All right, you will see that your check numbers here, it's 111, then there's 112. The next page will be, the next one will be 113, 114, and so on in chronological order. So you can also see that the checkbook has perforated pages, and that is where you would tear the check out and hand it to your supplier, and then you as the accountant are left with a source document that will give you the information that you will post to the cash payments journal. All the information regarding the details regarding the transaction will be recorded on this source document over here. Now let us chat about the advantages and disadvantages of checks. Before we continue with the advantages and disadvantage of checks, I thought let's go through the example on page 61 in your workbook or on your ebook, or the free exercise that is in the link below. You will note that on this example you have the bank name, the branch code. There's your check numbers being duplicated. There's your account number. Here is the account holder's name, that's PJ Wholesalers. And we will see the transaction that has been written out onto this, the payment that has been made with this check is as follows. Pay R. Roper, the sum of 575 Rand only, and it's been written in rands and cents as well, and that is to prevent somebody from filling another digit in front of the 5. So here there's checks and balances there. All right, so that's why it's written out in expanded notation. And on the side, on the source document, this is your information that you'll have regarding the transaction that has taken place as the accountant of the business. You will note that the information has been duplicated, the date, who it was written to, the payee, for what the check was written out for. So here we've got stationery. That really helps when you are posting to your cash payments journal. and the amount, this check is for 575 Rand. Then you'll notice that here's a balance. This balance here is an opening balance of the actual bank account before this check was written out. So the amount is 4,925. We subtract the amount that the check has been written out for, and the closing balance after this check has been issued is 4,350 Rand. All right. You can also use this. You know, it's called balancing your checkbook. Okay, that's an old expression. I'm going to balance my checkbook, and this is what people used to do. They write in the balance any deposits, any payments, and then they'd actually know exactly how much was in their bank account. So you could also show a deposit here. Maybe the deposit was 1,000 Rand, and then your balance would be, a deposit increases your bank balance, and so your bank balance would be 1,000 Rand more. All right, let's make a note here. You'll see that when we pay the money, whoever pays the money is referred to as the drawer or the payer, and the person in this case is PJ Wholesalers. Whoever receives the money is the drawee or the payee, and in this case it is R. Roper. Now you see over here it says non-transferable, and we've got the words or bearer. Let's just tell you what that's about. If Mr. Roper is walking around and the check falls out of his back pocket, and we don't have this writing over here, the bearer, or another word for bearer is carrier, can take that to the bank and they will give them the money. So to stop that from happening, we cross the check. So crossing the check is, we could either cross out or bearer, or we can make two lines at the top of the check and write in there not transferable, meaning it's not transferable to anyone else other than R. Roper. All right, we will now go to the advantages and disadvantages of checks. The advantages of making payments by check include, excuse me, number one, excellent for record keeping. There are 3 source documents proving a payment. Now remember, I taught you about the check counterfoil. That will be your primary source document. Then there are secondary source documents, and these include the original check and the bank statement. And now how that happens is once the check has been honored by your bank, they will actually send that check back to you with your bank statement. And then you can check against your bank statement which checks that you have issued have actually gone through your bank. So those will be your secondary source documents. All right. Number 2, no risk of cloning as with a bank card. It is far more difficult to replicate or duplicate a check as what it is to clone a bank card. Bank cards they do with the sleight of a hand. So the security measures as far as that's concerned are much better. Number 3, it's very difficult to forge a payer's signature. That is the person who the checkbook belongs to. The bank keeps a sample signature and checks every check issued against it. So when you go to the bank and you apply for a checkbook, when you go and sign for it, they actually take that sample signature, and every check that comes across their desk that is from you, if the signatures don't match, they will give you a call and ask if you actually made the payment. Number 4, unlike a direct transfer, a check can be cancelled by the payee if fraudulent activity is suspected. All right, so what happens is a direct transfer, once you've paid for goods online, the money is gone and it's very difficult to get it back. With a check, if you've bought goods and you've issued a check to someone and the goods are not what they promised, you can phone the bank and stop that check so that they won't get the payment. All right. Number 5, a cross check makes a check even more secure. All right, let me just show you what a cross check is. All right, here's an example of the check. Here you'll see not transferable or bearer. So usually it says pay the payee or bearer. And what that means is if Mr. Roper drops that check, anyone that bears that check, or carry, another word for bear is carry, carries that check to the bank, they can actually get the money. But just to prevent that from happening, we cross the check. It means we draw 2 lines And inside those lines, we write not transferable, meaning it's not transferable to anybody else other than our roper. Or, if, other than crossing it at the top, we could also cross out or bearer on the side. That's what it means to cross a check. All right. Next one, number 6. Money is not easily available to spend. Carrying a checkbook around is cumbersome, and it's not easy to just write out checks for small amounts for a cool drink, or if you go to 5 or 10 shops in a day, if you're doing your month-end shopping, to write out a check for everyone, it is much easier to just swipe a card. Number 7, must produce an ID when cashing a check. So let me just say for number 6, where money is not readily available, it'll save you some money, because you won't be spending as easily as what you do when using a bank card. Number 7, must produce an ID when cashing a check. So that's another security measure. When you pay by check, usually they ask you for your ID. They write your ID number at the back of the check, as well as your address and your telephone number. All right. Disadvantages. So I'd say advantages, the big thing there is security. And so let's now discuss disadvantages. Number 1, if a check isn't cashed within 6 months of being issued, it is considered stale and will not be honored by the banks. So let's pretend we issued a check as a company for goods and services, and our supplier forgets about the check in his diary, and after 6 months he tries to cash it at the bank, and they say, sorry sir, the check is stale. He then gives us a call and says, listen, please can you issue me another check, because I didn't bank it within 6 months, and what we'll do is we'll cancel the original check we gave him, and then we'll issue him a new check. All right. Number 2, depositor checks take up to 10 working days to clear. So that takes time for you to get your money. And the reason is they have to do all the checks and balances. There's a lot of red tape involved in clearing checks and so on. So that you'd have to wait a very long time for your money if you were paid by check, or if we were paying a supplier something, they have to wait for a very long time. You can apply for immediate clearance, but that also costs a lot of money. Number 3, some companies don't accept checks. We know that because of fraud, a lot of companies aren't interested. They want their money there and then. They don't want to wait 10 days or not be able to contact. People can give the wrong ID or the wrong telephone number or address, and you can't contact them again. Number 4, not suitable for paying small amounts. Like I said, it's very laborious writing out a check for small little amounts everywhere you go. Number 6, may be valueless if there are no funds available in the bank account to honor the check. So if somebody gives you a check in payment of something and you go and cash it and it bounces, it'll bounce because that person doesn't have enough money in the bank account to actually honor that check, to cover that check. So it's not even worth the paper that it's written on. Number 7, limited to banking hours, although ATMs accept check deposits. So with checks, you have to go to the bank to do your banking. And banks close at a certain time on a Saturday. Most of them aren't open on a Sunday. So you'd have to wait till Monday to actually get your check to the bank. Other than that, you can deposit it into an ATM, but it doesn't mean that there's money in your bank account. You'll still have to wait till Monday. So when it comes to checks and banking, like it says in number 7, it's limited to banking hours. All right, I wanted to show you something interesting. Sorry, let's this way. To show you that checks are used worldwide. Here this week, in 2020 in March, Donald Trump, with breaking news on YouTube on Fox 10, said President Trump will send Americans checks in the mail. So even the American government uses checks, and they'll be sending checks to the people that aren't able to work because of the isolation due to the coronavirus, and he's promising to send $1,000 to each of these people. And obviously these checks won't be generated by being handwritten. They will obviously be generated electronically, but this goes to show that checks are still valued around the world as a legal form of tender. You can turn with me now to exercise 21 in your workbooks. That's page 66, and I will see you there.